I'll come back to your work adapting, or as you like to put it, transforming some of his novels for the screen. Before that, I wanted to ask Pauline, going back to Eating Air, you suffered an attack in London, quite a vicious attack, many, many years ago. You dramatized this in a very powerful short story. And you've hinted that this episode made you sort of interested in how people are driven to commit acts of violence and sort of step beyond the boundary. And even though you don't justify it, you can almost understand it. Could I ask you to tell us a bit more about this?
Yes, it was a very extraordinary experience. I was at home and I was on my own, and at about 3 in the morning, I'd been to a party actually, and I came back and went to bed naked, no clothes, and it was a hot summer's night, and at about 3 in the morning, I opened my eyes and I thought I saw a figure dart back from behind the doorway, and I was half asleep, and then suddenly there was this massive attack with somebody trying to put a rope around my neck. And it was a man who, in fact, was on license, which is a system they have in Britain, from Broadmoor, which was a huge prison hospital for the insane. And he was out on license. They'd given him parole. And somehow, apparently, the police think he had been stalking me for a while. And a friend of mine from Jamaica had gone back to Jamaica that day and had left the window maybe this much open. And I think that's how he got in, although I never know if he was actually already in the flat when I came in at night. And there followed an extraordinary, quite long period in which I was actually stabbed, but not too badly, and in which I had to have a tremendous battle of wits with this man. And now I look back on it, some of it is actually quite funny. I mean, he was saying, I'm going to put a pillow over your head. And I was saying, no, that's too frightening, think of something else. So there was an extraordinary dialogue going on between us. So there was a tremendous physical fight at the beginning, but in which I was overpowered, and he tied my wrists. But when we were kids, we used to organize it so that our wrists were held apart so you could get out of the ropes. And I did that. So he hadn't really, I knew he hadn't tied me up properly. But then there was a long, I think about 3 hours, when at first I thought maybe it was a burglary that had gone wrong. And then gradually it began to be apparent that he was a psychopath. Because I think I said something and he said, oh, they all say that. And I realized that this had happened before. In fact, he had killed one woman. But anyway, there were also other funny things, like he'd said, have you got any money? And I got my purse out, and I said, oh, you don't need all that, and snatched the purse back. But so all sorts of extraordinary things were going on. But, I mean, in response to what you're actually asking, I've never felt more alive. It was obviously adrenaline, but the feeling of extraordinary sort of life and how fast I could think and was actually quite euphoric. And I also had this extraordinary, understanding of him, of how euphoric it must be for him to throw every single rule book out of the window, to be able to do anything you wanted with no morality, no humanity, nothing that we all normally live by. And that it was a kind of It wasn't an admiration. It was sort of astonished, almost admiration for this man that could throw the rule book so completely away. But I was very lucky. I escaped at the end. He went into another room to pull out the telephone wires, and I then got the ropes from out of my away from the rope bonds and jumped out of a back window. But and it produced a very good story. But the thing is, I think I've also been, in my life, slightly attracted to danger. I get very restless when things get too settled. And I suddenly, I wouldn't want to repeat it. And at times during that night, I thought that I was going to be murdered. And I wouldn't want to repeat it. And I don't blame anybody who's traumatized for life by it, but it so happened that I wasn't traumatized.